My therapist called my life the last month a dumpster fire, and she was right. I won't get into the details of everything that was going wrong for me all at once, but keep in mind that I was struggling immensely with my mental health, work stress, money stress, family stress, friendship issues. It seemed like everything was hitting the fan at the same time, and I was in a really low place that felt really impossible to get out of. I don't need to list out all of the problems that I was having and everything that was going wrong, but I will say the one thing that happened that is relevant is that I got robbed. So all of my cameras were stolen, and that's why I'm recording this on my phone, and it's just one more thing that has really made my life challenging lately. But I'm coming out of it. This is the day that I'm finally feeling like myself again, and I want to tell you how I navigated this really hard time, because everybody has them, and how I've gotten myself out of this rut. At this time, I was in a constant state of overwhelm, never having enough time to sleep, to process everything that was going on, or to take care of my physical body. I was scared and so low and angry and frustrated, and all of these difficult, uncomfortable emotions that were just keeping me in such a bad headspace for weeks on end. I was waking up in the middle of the night from terrifying stress dreams relevant to everything that was going on in my life. So it was like I was reliving it while I was sleeping. And then I was staying awake for hours because I just couldn't shut my brain down and go back to bed. So I was exhausted every morning. I was breaking out, which is uncommon for me, which is so lucky for me to say, but that's how I know I'm really stressed. And I also made myself sick, like physically sick, because I was so run down and so overwhelmed. I was also getting triggered by like the smallest of things, which is not common for me. Like one of my friends would say something in the slightly wrong tone of voice, and I would take it so wrong. I would feel so triggered, so activated, and need to like go sit in a room alone and journal about how I was feeling from like the tiniest little things, which does not feel good. I was emotionally all over the place. And these things that were challenging me, these things that were hitting the fan in my life, were coming one after another. So it felt like these just giant waves of stress were crashing over me. And all I was trying to do after one of them was catch my breath before another one came and just knocked me down. But here's the thing, I survived. I've survived because obviously I'm here, so I made it through it and I'm feeling a lot better. Surviving and thriving are different. I'm getting towards thriving, but what I have to remind myself in times like this is that I've survived 100% of my worst days, even the ones that felt impossible. And as I've gotten older and as I've learned how to navigate these really low points in my mental health or my life or my anxiety, I've learned how to get better and better at getting out of the low points and moving myself out of a rut. And it's getting easier even when things are really hard. The acne is clearing up. I'm almost caught up on sleep. My work tasks and expectations for my own productivity are finally starting to feel realistic again. I worked out this morning for the first time in a while because that's something that just I totally lost touch with when I was really struggling. I'm still navigating all of these emotions of fear and overwhelm and stress and betrayal, but I'm navigating them in a way that feels safe and feels realistic and like it's actually getting me somewhere. So we're moving forward. I'm choosing to sit in the discomfort of these emotions instead of trying to problem solve myself and make them go away as soon as possible, because there's really valuable lessons that I can learn in this time, even when it's really hard. The massive waves of stress that were crashing over me are starting to be something that is behind me, and each moment, each day, they're getting farther and farther away. And in the calm that is left over, that is coming towards me each moment, I can see with clarity how I made it through this and how I want to teach you to make it through it too. So here's 5 things that saved me in probably the biggest mental breakdown that I've had in the past year. The first thing is realistic expectations for yourself when you are struggling. This is so important. My regular workout routine, work productivity, social life, hobbies, things I'm trying to learn, not realistic right now at that level that I like to maintain them when I'm stable, when I'm doing good. We have to realign. This is hard to do because we are so hard on ourselves all the time. But if you don't do it, it gets so much worse. In my regular schedule, in the beautiful, wonderful life that I live, I work out most days, usually like a high intensity workout. I really enjoy those. I do kickboxing, I do Muay Thai, I do HIIT workouts, I do strength training. I love a good yoga or a good walk, but I really enjoy my high intensity workouts, and I've been doing them most days of the week with pleasure. I'm also self-employed, so I quit my 9 to 5 so that I could work 24/7. I work a lot and I love my work, so it doesn't feel like work a lot of the times, but I have to acknowledge that it still takes a toll on me mentally and physically. So working a lot, usually 7 days a week, not realistic right now. I also have so many amazing friends in my life who were supporting me through this as well. But I had to acknowledge that my regular social patterns weren't realistic. I couldn't show up for my friends the way that I wanted to. And I also just needed more time alone and more downtime right now. Realigning your expectations for your productivity in your daily life when you are having a hard time means giving yourself self-compassion that you need to get through a hard time. It also means not hating on yourself so much, which means developing resentment for the things that you have space from, like your workouts, like your work, like your social life. Because if you develop that resentment in a hard time and then you come out of the hard time, the resentment is still there. And that's why so many of my clients struggle to get back into their healthy habits, get into their self-development habits after a period of work stress or life stress, because they've distanced themselves mentally so much from the habit because they've made themselves hate it a little bit. If you only have the energy right now for small steps, then you need to only take small steps. If you only have the energy for small steps and you're still trying to take giant leaps into that high intensity workout, into that long work day, into that big group dinner, you will fall back down to where you've been, which is a low point, and maybe even lower because you're exhausting yourself and proving to yourself that you can't take care of yourself. And that's not a good feeling. The second thing that saved me in this horrible, terrible mental breakdown I was having was rest. And you might hate me for saying it because the last thing that we want to do is be nice to ourselves when we're having a hard time, give ourselves permission to do less. But you need rest, and not just sleep, but downtime and time to reflect and process when you have a high emotional strain. I was doing a lot of journaling, I was doing a lot of pleasure reading, I was sleeping, I was taking naps, I was just laying in my bed with my eyes closed because I was too stressed to fall asleep. All of these are different forms of rest that were allowing me to process my emotions, to check in with myself, and to not be so goddamn overwhelmed. This was hard to do, but it gave me so many mental benefits that I saw immediately, such as mental clarity about the situation, how I wanted to show up, how I wanted to move forward, because a lot of my struggles were involving other people. And it just moved me out of this like despair you have for having to wake up and navigate a new day when you're in a really bad mental rut. It made me wake up and be a little bit more positive each day, and that little level of positivity increasing over time got me back up to my normal self. The third one is so slept on, and I can't emphasize it enough, but it is education. And I don't mean go back to school and get your PhD to avoid the rest of your life. We don't need to go to grad school to get out of a mental rut. It'll probably make that worse. But small pieces of education that allow you to feel like you have control over this situation, that you can get yourself out of it. For me right now, that's reading books and literally taking notes like I'm in school, because I used to be a big nerd and I loved taking notes, if you can't tell. But I'm reading 2 books right now. One of them is about burnout. One of them is about perfectionism. They go so good together, and they are both like speaking to my brain and everything I'm struggling with right now. And just doing like 5 to 15 minutes a day, or 5 to 15 pages, whatever feels accessible to you, truly gives me new skills to move through this stress response, get out of fight or flight, feel like there's hope in the world and something to live for. And it has seriously made me feel like I'm taking back control over my feeling versus just waiting for these stress waves to stop crashing over me and hope I survive. Take back your power. Education doesn't have to be a school or a course to count, and it doesn't have to be intense to count either. Make it something that suits you right now and just makes you feel incrementally better each day, because that adds up. Number 4 is boundaries, and not boundaries the way that you think I'm going to say, which is boundaries with other people. I have implemented a lot of those. We don't have time for a 4-hour YouTube video right now, so we will not be diving into that. But when we set boundaries, we don't just set boundaries with other people, we set boundaries with other people, ourselves, and things. I've set a lot of boundaries with other people. I won't dive into them because I like to keep my friends and my family lives private. But Boundaries I set with myself are sometimes the hardest because we need to have compassion towards ourselves, not shit on ourselves, but we still need to hold ourselves accountable and be firm. So I set boundaries with myself to not do favors for other people before I had the capacity to take care of myself. That was probably the biggest one I set. I set boundaries with myself to do my best to have a regular daily life, even when I was in a really mentally low place. So trying to maintain a sleep schedule, trying to maintain some of my healthy habits. That's a boundary I set with myself. And then boundaries with things. The top things in my life that I had to set a boundary with were work, working out, and social life. Again, I already talked about how I didn't have the capacity for those things. So the boundary I set was not holding myself to the expectation that I was going to be able to maintain my usual level of those activities. And number 5 is asking for help. It is obvious, but not easy. So let's talk about how to make it a little bit easier if you are someone like me that struggles to admit that you need help a lot of the times. I used to not ask for help, and I didn't even realize that I was avoiding it, realize that I was telling myself that I needed to figure it out on my own, or my struggle wasn't valid, or I wasn't strong enough, until someone pointed it out to me and they were like, I can help you with this, please let me help you with this. So I asked for help in a lot of ways, not just from friends, but I did ask for help from friends. I asked for help from friends with like simple little tasks, like, can you please help me put my laundry away? Or can you go to the grocery store with me? I'm feeling really overwhelmed. Or can you help me vent this out? I need some support right now. Again, this kind of goes in line with boundaries, but I also asked for help from friends by saying no to favors that they asked for me. And the way that I was asking for help in this situation was someone would ask me to do something for them or with them, and I would say, can you please ask somebody else? I'm not really doing well right now. That's asking them to help me. So that's really nice to have that relationship with my friends where I feel safe doing that. I also asked for help from my therapist. I'm so happy to have somebody in my life that gives me that support team. I am this for a lot of people as a coach. I'm this for myself a lot of times, but it's really good to have other people, whether it's a therapist, a psychologist, a coach, somebody in your life that can give you a perspective that's not directly involved with your life like a friend or a family member would be. So that's what I do for a lot of people a lot of the times. I asked for help from my team. If you didn't know this, I have a team of 5 or 6 of us that help me run my business, and a lot of the social media content that you see is part of that. And I hate asking for help. I'm a perfectionist and therefore a little bit of a control freak. So I had to give more responsibilities to my team, ask them to help me with this overwhelming workload that I couldn't manage in my current state. And I had to trust that they had my best interests in mind and they had the capability to do it themselves with little or no instruction. And they proved me right. And asking for help from them gave me so much of my own time back and so much of my own energy back that I was able to redirect into getting myself out of this shitty little rut. And last but not least, I outsourced. I lived in Bali. It's an amazing place to live. I am so lucky that it is so easy to have food delivered. And there's also something you can use called GoSend, where you can send items in a car or on a motorbike, because everyone drives motorbikes here. And so I can get food delivered really easy and really affordably, and I'm so grateful for that. But I also had my laundry sent off to the laundry place because I don't have a washing machine, and I sent my laundry there so that I didn't have to go drop it off myself. Again, super lucky that that's affordable for me. But outsourcing in your own life might be as simple as asking your partner to do the grocery shopping, or cooking at home, or ordering takeout and giving yourself permission that everybody needs to order takeout sometimes and that you can do that right now. I also used to have my groceries packaged and delivered for me when I lived in the States in times of really strong overwhelm, and it was really worth it to pay that extra delivery fee for my mental health.